The wait to resume work at the Belvidere Stellantis plant may be longer than expected, according to UAW Local 1268 President Matt Frantzen.
Today, Frantzen announced in a social media post that there could be a potential 7-month delay in the reopening of the Belvidere location, confirmed by an anonymous contact with Stellantis.
In addition, Frantzen says he was shown documents that indicate the start of production at the Belvidere location may not happen until June 2028. UAW Vice President Rich Boyer, who's leading negotiations with the automaker, is working on a plan that he'll take to the corporation for some employees to return to the plant as soon as possible. Frantzen's post emphasizes a lack of clear information from Stellantis, but he adds he will provide updates on the UAW 1268 Facebook page.